First, let's start with the battery. We've got the battery here, and that is going positive and negative to the charge controller. So here we've got the real thing. We've got our 12-volt battery, and I've made these two wires. So we've got these connections here that I showed you earlier. That's connected there, and it attaches on. And it's a wire coming out and going through a fuse. So it's good to put a fuse in there. So if anything goes wrong and you wire it up incorrectly, it'll blow the fuse rather than creating a spark or potentially a fire. So have that in there, and you can get these from J-Car or any electronics shop. So these wires are going to go directly to your charge controller. This is a charge controller that has the icons on here already, so we can see that that's the battery, positive and negative. So all we need to do is put that straight into the battery positive section. So we'll do that by having a little flathead screwdriver, insert that in, and then tighten down the screw. We'll do exactly the same thing for the negative. Okay, you can see that's come on now. Next, let's wire up the automatic timer. So this timer is one that I picked up from J-Car, my local electronics shop, and you can see that they've actually put the circuit diagram on the back there for you to make it easy. But to make it even easier, we can follow my diagram, and as long as you get this exact one, this 12-volt automatic timer, you can follow this. So we see we've got our pins here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we've got them drawn out here as well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got our positive going to the charge controller and continuing across to the missing one pin, going to the next one across, and then that is also connecting here and going to the pump. So it's creating the timer, wiring it into the pump. Then we've got our negative, which is going here to the charge controller, and then it's also going to the pump as well. So let's wire that up now. Okay, so here's one that I've wired up ready to go. So these two wires go into the connection that I showed you earlier, and that is clamped onto there and then soldered on, and I've also put the shrink tape around that as well just to protect it a bit. So that's what we're looking at there, two wires going into the connector, and then to show it to the diagram, this one is wrapping around to there, and this one is going out to the charge controller. So we can connect that straight on, following our diagram, putting that connection on here, and then wiggling it on nice and tight, and then doing the same thing, missing one pin, going to the next one across, putting that on. So next we've got the positive and negative wires coming out of our pump, and I've connected this extra wire to it. So we've got the pump going out to the second pin across on the diagram, that's the negative. So if we connect this one into the same spot, and then we'll see this wire coming out, which is going to go to the charge controller. So the final part here is our positive, which is coming out from the pump, directly from the pump, and then that can connect straight in here onto the final spot. So we see the pump positive going into the final connection on the timer. We're going to do the exact same thing, connect that in there. So next we've got the negative and the positive coming out of our little circuit, and we want that to go directly into our charge controller. So we can see that we've got the little spot here for a light bulb, which is the symbol for a device we want to power, and we want to put that in. So we've got the positive, which can go straight into the positive connection on our charge controller, and then we've got negative, which can go straight into the negative spot. Lastly, we want to connect up the solar panel. So you can see on our diagram, the solar panel is actually just going straight into the charge controller. So this part's fairly easy. So we've got our solar panel, negative and positive, coming out and going straight into their spots on this charge controller. So we've got the solar panel symbol, we've got the positive symbol, put that in, and we'll put this into the negative spot. And tighten those up, and that's our circuit wired up. And now we can give that a test. If I turn this on, this pump will turn on. Working perfectly. So now you can see how I've set all of that up over here for our vertical garden system. We've got our irrigation, we've got our charge controller, and we've got our pump set up here. And you see I've just built these little raincoats out of recycled plastic bottles to protect them from the elements a little bit. It's connected to our pump. We've got our irrigation timer here, which we can now turn on, and we'll see it start to drip. So that brings us to step 11, which is to prepare your coconut pot plants to get ready to hang on to your vertical garden system. So I'm going to show you how to make two different coconut pot plants. The first one is with a mature coconut shell. So these are the coconut that you would find like this in the supermarket. So they've got a fully developed shell, very thick, and the other type is a drinking coconut. So the drinking coconut can dry out once you open it to look like that, but when you get it fresh from the supermarket, they've still got the white husk on them. So first, let's look at how to prepare a mature coconut. So the way I like to do it is to drill one hole in the end. So you've already got the natural holes there. So you can just drill one, should be nice and soft. And then you can empty the coconut water into a cup. So once that's drained, you can have a little sip, and then you can cut the end off to make it a pot plant. But to do it that way, you need to have a lot of experience using a drop saw, because it is a bit of a precarious cut. So I found an easier way, and that is to use the green drinking coconut. So the green drinking coconut, you just need to open them. So you may already have had experience opening coconuts before. I like to cut the husk off. Around the top. And then you get a nice sharp knife like this and just cut into it. So once you've got it open, just empty the liquid into a cup and you can drink that later. Absolutely delicious. And you can make the hole a little bit bigger. Nice and easy. The thing is with the mature coconuts is they've got a really thick shell, as you can see there. With the green drinking coconuts, they actually have quite a thin shell. So they're a lot easier to open and a lot easier then to turn into a pot plant. So then it's just a matter of scooping out that flesh. You can eat that flesh as well. The flesh is soft like jelly, and then dry that out. So put it into a really sunny position, and so it can dry out in the sun. When it dries out, it'll go that nice golden brown color, and then it's ready to use as a pot plant. You just need to drill one hole in the bottom. And then I like to put a screw, a little hook into the back. So you work out where it's going to hang nicely. Just think about what it's going to hang on. That's a nice flat edge there. So you probably want to put your hook in about that position there. So we'll do a pilot hole where we want our hook to go. And then we get our hook and just screw that in. So one extra thing you want to do is cut a little square of a geo fabric or shade cloth and just put that in to line the bottom of the pot. So that will prevent the hole from getting blocked up. So now we have a nice little coconut pot that we can hang onto our garden. So one final step before we plant is to work out where this bottom drain and pot plant is going to drain back into our tank. So we can just line that up and work out the length of pipe we need. So this is the 19mm fitting, 19mm pipe, and then once we've got that worked out, we can cut that and attach it and drill a hole in the top here for the 19mm pipe to go through, and that will then be connected to our drain. Once you've done all those steps, then it's time for the exciting part, which is to add the plants. So you can see that this one's been growing in the pipe section here for quite some time. It's really established and doing well. So you just put that up in here, and it's going to slide into that hole and then sit on top. So that's going to catch all the drips and drain nicely back down into the tank. So now we can also plant out the coconuts and hang them up under the irrigation system. So now your vertical garden is ready to just enjoy and harvest from and watch it grow. So you can fill up this water tank as well with nutrients from your worm farm. If you're doing worm farming, you can make nutrients for this, and you just program the drips. Just turn that on and recirculate back down into the tank. So now you've done all the steps and you've built your fantastic solar-powered vertical garden made from recycled materials. If you like that video on building a DIY solar-powered vertical garden, then make sure you subscribe and stay tuned and jump on the website and check out our latest product, the teleplantific vertical garden.